Good morning, Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Let us turn our attention to Blade Runner, to the last reel, when the antagonist, murderous android played by a young, thin Rutger Hauer, is having his final confrontation with a character named Blade Runner, or nicknamed Blade Runner, portrayed by Harrison Ford. We see the scene, and then the scene culminates in a fistfight with Harrison Ford's character hanging by his hands from a ledge. And then, seemingly inexplicably, his would-be murderer reaches down and pulls him up and throws him down to make sure he's still incapacitated. But he needs someone to talk to because he knows he's dying. And he's lived long enough. His neural networks have increased in sufficient complexity to create a sense of self. And in a very famous line, he says, and I'm going to do a terrible imitation and a terrible paraphrase. He says, I've seen wondrous things. I've seen ships burning in space. When I die, will all these memories die with me? Of course, every living being with a fully functional brainstem does not want to perish. However, that which is unique to those beings who have enough of a midbrain and a forebrain to have a sense of self is that we want part of us to survive death. Call it fear, call it self-importance. Each of us, on some deep level, would like to think that we are different, we are separate, we are cut above the rest, and our experiences are so superior to the experiences, of the riffraff, that it's important that our experiences, intellectual, visceral, and emotional, continue. And that reminds me very much of a passage from Lao Tzu's poetic treatise, poetic philosophical prose, the Tao Te Ching. In which he explains that the sage, someone who has mastered centered spontaneity, greets death as an old friend. And he looks forward to it the way a laborer looks forward to a good night's sleep after a long day's work. And of course that brings to mind the passing of Master Yoda on the swamp planet of Dagobah. I think we see this in the Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. And in similar language, Yoda says, and I won't even try to imitate Frank Oz, a good rest, I have deserved it, have I not? And so the idea put forward in the Tao Te Ching is that we can go through life in a contrived way or a spontaneous way. And there are two flavors of spontaneity. there is chaotic spontaneity. And that a good example of that would be, the great idea you have after your 4th shot of tequila. And then there's centered spontaneity. And that's the great idea you have after an hour of gentle mindfulness meditation. And the idea is that after a lifetime, after years of not only getting good at centered spontaneity, but making it a habit, that we are no longer running away from our fears. We're no longer running away from interdependence. We're no longer running away from change. We are getting good at viewing whatever happens as an interesting fold in our dance. We're reminded of Peter Pan, where it looks like Peter Pan may perish. And he says, I suppose dying could be a very big adventure. He doesn't pray to some imagined god or pantheon for an auspicious rebirth or a heavenly home. He just says, this too could be an adventure. The more pragmatic of atheists will say, yes, but consciousness perishes with the brain. Sounds good. I don't know. The theme of the Tao Te Ching is not a quest to answer the question, what survives death? It answers the question, how is one to live in the most fulfilling way, in the way that creates the greatest benefit, not only for oneself, one's posterity, but for all society at large. And a strong argument could be made that we do that not only not by saying my goals don't matter, not by saying my goals are paramount, simply by being aware of our goals, but using that awareness merely to center us. And use that centeredness, that spontaneity to surf through life. At the very end of the last scene in Blade Runner, the murderous android knows his time is up, and he turns to his last would-be victim and says, time to die. He doesn't say it with bravado. He doesn't say it with terror. He says it with resignation. In the 60s, the Mamas and Papas immortalized a verse from the Hebrew Old Testament, the book of Ecclesiastes. And the name of the song was Turn, Turn. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing it for you. You can look it up on YouTube. But one of the lines is, there's a time to be born, a time to die, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. What the murderous android was realizing was that although he could kill humans, although he could destroy ships, he couldn't destroy death. He couldn't destroy inevitability. And of course, who can say inevitability without hearing the voice of Agent Smith from The Matrix? And so the last act of maturation for the dying android in Blade Runner was resignation. Not in a fearful way, not in a sad way. It's an act of profound release. What if we did not have to wait until our last moment to experience the exquisite bliss of release? What if we can make that our daily, our hourly, our frequent experience? May you and yours be healthy and happy.